Previously on Legends of Aelos. As Asher Asterion begins to walk away from felling his father, Asher Flatfang, along with the party, rush to the wounded Aiden's side. And though life ebbs from him, the druid is able to staunch the bleeding and mend the wound with his healing magic. As Karun and Rowan assist with Aiden, Briar and Dom rush to halt the younger Asterion from escaping after his attempted patricide. They are able to catch him, and Dom grapples with Asterion until the latter begins to bear the blade of his sword against the barbarian prince. Briar is able to bolster Dominicus's defense long enough for Flatfang to polymorph Asterion into a sloth, ending the onslaught and severely hampering his means of escape. With the escape thwarted and Aiden mended enough to lift himself to his feet, the party converse about what transpired and attempt to find out why Aiden's son had attempted this. The party eventually discovers that there is a shared belief between Aiden and his sister, Catherine. Both held Eden in vile regard. As Aiden speaks of how his son's dispositions and motivations changed slowly ever since uniting with Eden, ever darker and crueler, there's still a skepticism amongst the five, considering the many twistings that they had already witnessed professed by the temple. Asher Flatfang attempts to give the other Asher an opportunity to potentially escape undue prejudices or worse, as he undoes the spell he cast upon him, though plays it off as Asher Asterion escaping the transformation himself. Regardless, Asher Asterion does not flee and submits to authorities for his crime, to be taken into the custody of the Order and under his father's care and inquiry. The Asterions and Order members depart, and the party does as well, first to check on their horses, which are not only well taken care of by the stable staff, but are also paid up beyond their initial boarding time, thanks to the extension being paid by a mysteriously cloaked old woman, which rings all too familiar to the party. With their equine steeds still secure and dusk now settled, the five return to the tankard and their lodgings, electing to speak on matters in much more confined and controlled quarters than the moonlit streets of the capital. Upon their return at the tavern, the members go about wrapping up their evenings, some unwinding over a drink, while others over conversation. Rowan mentions to Jathril again about venturing north to his hometown, potentially striking it out there, if he doesn't end up returning to the Order, of course. After a stiff drink, Dom heads off to the not-fighting arena, and Karun passes him to retire to his room, but not before inquiring with Dom whether or not he would like him to attempt to reach out to his mother, his birth mother. Dom agrees, and Karun heads to his and Briar's room. Despite this being an attempt of communicating with someone that Karun had only envisioned in a memory, compounded by the distance and a myriad of other unknown complications, Karun's message to Queen Elsbeth finds her. Not only is she alive and well, enough, but she confirms the death of the king, King Vath, along with a veiled yet obvious confirmation of her being complicit in his demise. Still, she believes that what she did was best for her people, not the governmental bodies, which is why she also believes in her son Dominicus, in what he represents to the people of Eswind and Zahath, and potentially all of Telvernia. As Karun finishes his last spell for the day, there is a knock at the door, and with it, Dominicus, who asks Karun if he was successful in his outreach. Karun confirms that he was, but he elects to tell Dom in the morning, so as to not disturb Briar, who has exhausted herself sending her own messages to Coel, messages she'll find hard to recall after morning light breaks, thanks to the spirits she consumed the prior evening. Still, the night passes, but during so, Asher has a vision, his dream giving him the eyes of an apparent guard dog, and as he witnesses this, he gathers that this wolfen pup is likely accompanying the large migration of civilians that he had witnessed marching across Zahath. As Asher listens more, there are mentions from the few guards that the group must rest, though they are obviously leery. They mention that those which they are fleeing from do not rest. Once morning breaks, they all gather to speak, but elect to do so at length back at the castle, along with the king and Kazrak, of course, so as to maintain secrecy with what information has been discovered. Though before they depart, Karun does relay to Dominicus that his mother does in fact not only acknowledge him, she supports him and what he represents as well. After breakfast, the party departs for the castle. Upon entering, there is a notice of acknowledgement of Dom, signs of word already getting around. They greet the queen and princess, the latter smiling and blushing upon seeing Briar amongst the group. Once the five are with Kazrak and the king in private, and confirmed secure of any scrying potential, Asher and Karun proceed to divulge what they have learned and seen. From the visions amongst the fleeing refugees to the confirmation of King Voth's death and its motivations by the queen learned from Elizabeth herself. The king and Kazrak acknowledge the gravity, with Kazrak even confirming that he has been in communication with the Queen of Zehath ever since Dom's presentation to him, along with relaying his existence to her. This all bolsters King Kentoniz's belief of what Dom represents, and affirms his convictions on what is about to transpire. The king has Dominicus prepared to be presented to the people when he addresses Kinghaven from the king's balcony on the outcome of the council summit and the status of the war. As Cantonius stands above the sea of people that have gathered in front of the castle, he speaks on the strife of the war and its impact on their lives and emotions, though he beckons that his people believe in him when he says that the armies that march across Zehath are not soldiers, but merely civilians like themselves, fleeing a mad king whom has now been slain, that they are people like all of them, and that they should be welcomed as such, fellows and kin. Cantonius validates the existence of this bond between the kingdoms as he introduces Dominicus, his son, of his blood and the blood of Elizabeth, still queen of Zehath. The people are shocked, though there are a fair number that rally to the new prince and the chant for the end to the war. However, it is after Dominicus, the man who lived his whole life as a shadow, an individual hunted by his true name, addresses the gathered masses, and his message sways the population so that the majority gathered now shout praise and cheer for the good king and his good prince son, in hopes for a time of unity and peace across all Telvernia. And it is from here we shall continue the story of the Legends of Aelos.